Okay, so first up we have Adobe as the number one AI stock at 23 according to Forbes. Let's break this down. I drew these zones a few days ago. You can see actually it did pull up out of this zone, not quite all the way up to the 574, 575 area, but did pull up and now has pulled back a little bit. Seems to still have some support here. So let's break this down and let's see where it might be for 2023. So first things first, we gotta see our ranges for the month. Last month also closed very, very bullish through this zone, so that looks great. I do think the financials is very overpriced, but we won't necessarily get into that in this video. We'll just go over the technicals here. So I think shooting for this main zone up here on the monthly, as it appears now, based on last month's close here, this is still a straight shot. This month will still probably be very bullish as well. You're looking at a normal range of about $75 a month. Last month at $78, previous month $6 in movement, or $1. Yeah, I think $70 to $80 is probably pretty good. I'd even shoot for $80. So if our low for the month, let's see, is about 520, we'll say 510. We'll say 510 is our low for the month. At the bottom of this zone here, if price comes down to this zone, we can delete this for now. If price comes down to this zone, that'll give us our 510 for our low for the month on our range, and then we're looking at, if we want to target 80, would be 590. So this is kind of what this month would look like, and then obviously our goal for the end of the year is this zone here. But we know our monthly range is good for roughly $80. So for the month, we can start here. Our monthly projection, because the year is going to be broken down into months, obviously. So we should only really target a month at a time to get a good good reflection, good basis of where this is moving on the yearly. So break this down. We'll put a September marker here. We're looking to buy this for the month. This is considered the number one AI stock according to Forbes. So don't know how true that is, but just based on that article, we'll go with it. I don't know all the depths. I just look at economics of technical trading kind of thing. So all these tech companies are very overpriced based on a lot of aspects. So take that for what it's worth. But we're just looking at the economics, and so I think based on the economic technical point, this is super bullish. Doesn't look like it's stopping at any point soon. I think 590 is definitely within range. I think this upper zone here for the target for the end of the year for sure is definitely within reason. You can see this was a previous high for this company, and as AI develops more and more and they get more involved with it, I could definitely see it breaking the zone and keep going as far as value. And if the money is flowing into the tech industry, it's going to flow more into AI than anything else this next decade for sure. So I think and Adobe is a leader, right? Like their applications, they have all their software. I use it. I use Premiere Pro. Their software is fantastic. So I can't even argue that's just overpriced. But price is subjective, right? If people are paying it, then it's not overpriced. So as a company, I think they're overpriced, but they're producing good products and people want that, and they're investing heavily in AI, so it makes sense. So I do see this hitting 590 this month. Right now, our 510 area between 510, 520, or 510, 515, let's say, that's kind of our supply zone for this stock. You can see it did come down a bit and did actually create a little bit of resistance here on a 4-hour time frame right here before printing this huge bullish candle today, this 4-hour candle. We'll see how price closes today, but I could see it closing pretty bullish as well, and kind of filling this gap a bit more. So we will see with that how that closes. But yeah, as far as a monthly projection, super bullish, headed to 590. Could definitely hit this upper area here, this 670 zone for the end of the year, I think, for sure. As long as it stays bullish, the money keeps dumping into the tech industry, even though interest rates are through the roof. It is possible, and things can be overpriced for a long, long time and just continue. So I think what's going to happen with a lot of these companies is that all the money flows to a select handful of companies, and then all the money from the other companies, goes out of it because they're just not practical. I think we're moving into a technical age, as much as I don't really enjoy it. I think the money will find these tech companies that are heavily invested in AI, and I think those companies are going to become so overpriced, but yet still continue to go up. Whereas the other companies that aren't, involved in AI and tech itself, they'll probably diminish a little. That's Adobe. I do think it's going to hit 590 this month, about the 670 area for the end of the year. As far as AI stocks go, I think Adobe is definitely a good buy. So next up we have Google here. So I do really like Google as well. I think they're a good company to buy. I think they're actually not as overpriced, if I remember correctly, as far as PE ratio and stuff. Last week, very bullish. This week, a little bit of a pullback, but you can see, I mean, super healthy. So yeah, Google looks like it's going to continue up for sure. You look at last month, bullish engulfing. There was this area here actually that it completely annihilated. So I mean, that tells me that it's super bullish and it wants to keep going up, and there's not really an end in sight. We can mark up this zone here. It's about $150, kind of the all-time high for Google. Now we'll just see on a monthly aspect. It usually moves about, I would say, $20. Last month was 18, the month before was 12, the month before that was 22. So I mean, maybe $15 is pretty reasonable actually. On the safer side, it did gap pretty hard here, so this might actually pull back down and kind of close this gap. Don't know much about that yet. We'll have to just see, but I want to figure out my monthly parameters. So if it moves about $15 and our low for the month is, as of right now, we'll say 128. We don't know if this will stay this way, but for right now, we'll mark it out. I still want 125 to be, oh, that's way low. Man, the stock. Okay, so I don't want to be way out, but I don't want to be in the range here. Okay, so we'll say 127 is our low for the month. And then we're looking at a $15 range, 142 for the high. And I do think price could definitely hit this high. So, and then ideally for the end of the year, you're looking at between 148 and 152, and that is the previous highs for Google. So I think that's definitely within reason. $15 this month, $10 to $15 up this month. It's definitely possible. And for market down for September, this is kind of our move for the month of August, and then going into September, hopefully we're up here and we can for prices into this area. But like I said, this might fill this gap. Don't really know yet. There is some support here for sure. So I would actually wait for price to come back down to buy Google. I would wait for price to come back down to between 128, 127, kind of in this zone here, and then look for a long position. I do think that it's obviously going to go up on the month dramatically, but based on today's candle, and then yesterday's candle, and basically all week, honestly, there's some bull candles, but there's quite a bit of wickage, right? So this wick is bigger than this candle. Same with this one. You did have this gapped candle. It was bearish, so you got these wicks up here. So there's a previous resistance zone up here at the top here that would have to break. So I do think that Google's got to come down to about 128 before it's even considered a good buy. And then I think for the month though, I think 142 is very reasonable for it to hit. I think it's got a ton of momentum. It's way above this moving average on the daily, way above on the 4 hour as well. It might actually find this 1 hour moving average once price comes back down to here, about the 127 area, 128. This moving average might catch up and function as support and take it right back up to, towards this zone, and then to the next zone, which is about 142, which is the monthly range. You can even see everything else lines up as well, which is really nice. I love when this is why I like technicals and not fundamentals as much, because fundamentals can be misleading, and that's why people that trade news, or they really rely on the news to dictate trading. I understand why they do. I just personally don't, because to me it just doesn't work as often. Whereas like technicals, I can see this is an area of resistance. I can see that this is a supply zone for bears. They've done it previously. They'll probably do it again. I don't really care about Google's earnings as much, because I care about the overall technicals of the charts and what price has done previously. Whether the earnings are good or bad, Google can still be bought up. It doesn't really matter. Like Google is very, all these tech stocks are very overpriced right now. PE ratios of over 30, and anything over 15 is considered overpriced, historically. So these asset classes are already overpriced. So the idea of like being concerned about earnings being good or bad, I get why. And sometimes there's more momentum when earnings come out and stuff like that. So I get that part as far as volatility and volume itself. So I do get that aspect, but for me, it's all technicals. So having this zone up here and having this being a monthly target, having this be within its normal range, ATR, its average true range is about $15 a month right now. So if 127 is the low, if it moves $15 up, that's a $15 range, and that puts us at 142, which puts us right in this area. The trend, you can see this week was a little bit of a pullback, but not much, especially compared to last week. So these are all healthy techniques to go off of and base a trade on for Google. So yeah, that's Google. That's the number two AI stock for 23 according to Forbes, and yeah, I like it. I think it's a great buy, especially at 127. I would just wait for it to come down to that and look for a good entry point and take it. Okay, so next up we have Amazon. Wow, I drew this and it pretty much filled out perfect. It's pretty crazy. I haven't looked at this in a few days, and I mean, obviously I kind of got lucky. I didn't expect this. I expected this move, but I expected it to be more linear and like consistent kind of thing. So instead it just gapped right into this zone here. So Amazon is the number 3 AI stock for 23 according to Forbes. Kind of agree. I mean, it's super bullish, way above this moving average. Amazon is massive. They control a lot of distribution, and they control a lot of other areas that don't even have to do with tech, but they control them. So as far as like the warehouses and stuff like that, they got planes, they got everything. So Amazon is massive, and according to this chart, which we're currently looking at, this huge, like almost $15 gap. Basically, this trade that I had marked out for the month already completed itself right into the zone. So I would actually, reevaluate this. It's clearly bullish, but now we're into this zone here. If you look at it on a monthly perspective, it usually moves about $20 a month, and it's already at 17. Last month was 10. Before that was 11, 21. So yeah, I wouldn't even. I mean, $19, $18. It's pretty much at its mid already. So as far as Amazon goes, I would probably be looking short it just as like a sell-off for the month, because it's already completed its monthly move, in my opinion. So I do not think Amazon is bearish by any means, but I would be looking for a short trade to try to kind of get some of this, especially because it gapped, right? So price usually does come back and fill gaps. So there's no real support between 143, 135. So there's a good chance that this comes back and just fills this gap here. I would just mark out these monthly parameters here. So your monthly low is 26, and then if we say that on average even 20, we'll say, which would be on the higher side, but your monthly high is about $20. Or sorry, your monthly high is about $146, which would be a $20 move on the month. That'd be close already, and it's into this zone, so that's where it gets a little iffy. Price has previously sold off in this area. If you extend this through here, you can see it's actually a little bit shortened. You can see all this rejection here, which would have been support, and broke resistance. So this is obviously a very bullish week. If this candle closes, and it is now, which it closes in 3 hours, and I do exactly how it is now, you are looking for a bull move week as well. And like your next significant area would be way up here. But like I said, I think Amazon is ranged out. I may be totally wrong. We definitely won't consider anything until next week. I could just see something like this taking place, a bit of a pullback. So similar to Google, how you've seen on the weekly, for Google, the previous week was very bullish, and then this week was a bit of a pullback, but not much. Amazon will probably be the opposite. This week for Amazon, very bullish. Next week will be a little bit of a pullback. So as companies move their money around, they're putting money in one company, pulling it out of the other. It's just kind of what happens. So I mean, if you would have bought Amazon stock early in the week, or even yesterday, let's say, if you would have bought it at 127, and now today it's closing at 143, like you've done really well already. So you probably made 2% just on your money in one day. So it makes sense to take, especially because you're going into this resistance zone. You're at the cap for the normal range of the month, so you would probably most likely take your profits, which would also cause a bit of a pullback. So I would short this down to this area, this previous area here. Yeah, I think this is definitely a safer area. It might come down a little bit more and close this gap, but to start off, I would definitely be comfortable with this as long, to the 135 area. Let's see, we'll mark this down. 135, I think, would be great. And then just wait to see what price does next week, right? If you get a bunch of, let's say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are all weak candles, and price comes back out of this zone, then you can start seeing the bear structure set up. So lower lows, lower highs, something like this. Then you're probably good to go. You can see on the 1 hour, it's already quite a bit. These candles are getting much, much weaker. You had a big bull candle going into it, a bit weaker. So obviously the volume's dying off. It's the end of the day. It's Friday, end of the week. So very, very common. But I would say something like this, just to kind of fill this gap, and just kind of a bit of a pullback week, bit of a sell-off. People made their money already on Amazon. So I think it's totally possible to look for something like this next week, but we just got to wait. That's Amazon. Baidu, okay, don't know much about this company, but apparently it's number 4 for the top AI stocks of 3. So let's break this down. You can see it's at a huge area of it's here. However, last week, very bullish into this zone. This week, a little bit of a pullback, but also rejecting now. So I could see this going a little bit higher for sure. on a weekly, yes, sorry, that was on the monthly, but now on the weekly, very similar, bullish engulfing. This week, a little, came down a little bit, pulled back, very healthy. Could definitely break these areas here. It's even bullish on the weekly now, crossed over recently, so this is looking bullish for sure. Good buys. So it usually moves about 30 bucks in a month. Last month was 20, before that was 28, month before that was 18, 34. So yeah, maybe 20 is definitely reasonable. 25. We'll go with 25 for now. So we figure out what our low is for the month. If this candle was the low, let's say, put it right around 125 is our monthly low. And then our monthly high will be about $20 above that. So 165. Or did we say that would be about $5? No, I think 20 is reasonable. It's going to have to break these zones kind of. If we look at where 165 ends up, it's quite a bit above these ones, but it's also into these old. We have to break these ones. Probably will do. Then it's got to go into these ones. So do you think 165 is very good? I think it's good price within the monthly range, and but not too much, because the chances of it having enough volume to break that previous zone that we looked at before on the weekly, it might not be able to do. So looking for an entry point here. Very bullish, way above this moving average. You can see higher highs still. So the bullish structure is still there. Do have some wicks here. It did gap, filled it a little bit. So based on this, I would look for a buy position kind of right where it was before. Right around 145 still would be my buy position. I think on a 1 hour time frame, yeah, I guess price might cross over actually back into the zone. But you can just see that there's not, it's resisting this area right now above 150, so it doesn't really want to break above 150 yet, which tells me it might retrace a little bit more back into 145 and get some more buyers are probably waiting here at 145, and then you're looking for a long position, ideally all the way to 165 at that point. Based on just a monthly move, that is the monthly range. So I mean, statistically, price for this stock is able to move that much in a month, so this is very reasonable. It would have to break this weekly zones here that we talked about. Technically basically going into these zones over here, February of 2022, so that'll be another battle for it to break. As far as right now, yeah, I do think this is a good buy. Comes down to between $147 and $145, as long as the price structure remains. If it hits the zone and then it starts making higher highs, you can see the bulls come in and the buyers come in. This 4 hour moving average is caught up a little bit more. If it breaks down, if it breaks below this 1 hour moving average but then breaks above it again, then you can see that price movement kind of switched a bearish pullback to the bullish trend resuming. So I think that's what we got to wait for Baidu. And yeah, that's Forbes top 4 stock for 2023 regarding AI. All right, so in 5th place here for the top 12 AI stocks of 2023, we literally have the ticker symbol AI. So the company is C3. I've never even heard of until I looked it up and on Forbes or whatever. So let's break this down. The market's currently closed right now, so let's break this down and see what we can kind of look in this company. A good investment according to Forbes. So I can see that it obviously started off very strong and dipped up until the end of last year, December, seems like. But since then, it's been on the uptick. So these last few weeks have been very wicky, so it doesn't really know what it wants to do. And then you move on to the weekly. Price is above this moving average, so it is bullish. Based on the daily, you can see price came down and it rejected this area, so the moving average functioned as support there. So I mean, you got this big leg up right here, and actually price is perfect, to be honest. So you had this big leg up, price pulled back to the 50% line almost perfectly and held. So and now it's coming back up. It seems to be kind of trickling and consolidating a little bit, but it still is moving up. You can see higher lows here other than today, which it closed quite bearish. Given it being a Friday though, kind of it does happen. It is kind of holding above this area here. You can see the bear candles going into the zone that it's been holding. I would still consider a buy on this for sure. Let's figure out what our monthly parameters are. So last month moved $8, month before $18, before that $27. This is telling me 13 is about the average. Seems a little bit high. Might shoot for 10, given last month it only moved 8. So we'll shoot for 10. If we decide that roughly $37 is our monthly low, mark this down, and then our upper about $47. That actually puts us at that previous zone perfectly, so I like that a lot. So that's our monthly high, right at $47, right at this previous area here that it made to. So Looking for a buy entry. We'll put this September marker here. And then we got to make sure that everything else is aligning. So right now on the 4 hour, you can see price is holding this area as of right now. It did make a new high here before pulling back. So yes, it kind of made a new, like it was higher highs up until this point. It did break. So now it's a little iffy bear wise, but at the same time, price is way above this 4 hour moving average. I'd still say it's pretty bullish. It did break the 1 hour moving average. That's less significant than the 4 hour. I would wait for price to come back out of this zone, start breaking higher highs again. This area here, again, this is the beginning of the month, so volume might be down a little bit, kind of is what it is. And then let price come back up, break this area at least, or the very least, let price come above this moving average, and at least the lows of the wick, so the lows of the hourly candle should start being above this. And then I would say you're probably good for a buy up to this zone, nothing really further because we don't know much yet. It's got to break that area, and then your next area, it could go to, it's right up here, so a little bit higher, right above the $50 mark, but there's significant resistance up here. So that's a bit of a gamble at this point. You can see all these wicks here for the previous weeks. Pretty crazy, you usually see that. So I do think there's a good buy position here. I do think we just have to wait a little bit. I don't know if this company is super bullish long term. I don't know if this is I don't know anything about this company, to be honest, guys. I just trade on technicals for the most part, especially when it comes to stock. These stocks are all overpriced, to be honest. But yeah, based on this, I do think there's a good buy, but only to, roughly 47. This is kind of where your stop would be. Keep it just below 37, and you should be good to go. But as of today, this closed pretty bearish. If you look on the weekly, pretty bearish. So there's no guarantees yet. I would want to see price get rejected in this area, and then start making at least some higher highs, higher lows on the 1 hour before entering any long, because we just don't know yet. And so you're taking a risk. To buy this right now would be a dumb risk because you just got a lot of bearish momentum still here. Yeah, currently as of today, yesterday, day before, it's been nothing but bear. So in all these previous weeks, price is really struggling to go above 40 bucks. It hasn't been able to do it since beginning of June. As of recently, it's really having a tough time breaking 40 bucks. So until this breaks this area, until it starts showing me higher highs, higher lows on the 1 hour time frame, until I see something like this into this zone, rejection, come up like this, higher high, higher low, something like that. I need to see that, and then I would probably invest me a little bit, at least hold it to 47. That is AI, that is C3. Now we got IBM. Wow, IBM is bullish. Two big bull legs here. Great bullish price action. This is number 6 apparently on Forbes list of top AI companies to invest in for 2023. Can see it's getting close to a main area. It's actually at one already, really significant, a little bit higher, right above 150 bucks. So it's almost like the high. We can go back. So it's not the all-time high, but I mean it hasn't been higher than 150 bucks since January of 2008, a long time. So we're pushing real highs here. I don't know, based on this weekly and this area here, last time it was in this area, we had a big bear candle out of it, and then this weekly here closing a bit of a doji candle, kind of the market's indecisive what it wants to do. So this becomes tougher for me. I look at I'm breaking this down. There's nothing that's really that clear to me. This 4 hour closed, super bearish engulfing, and it is at this previous zone. So granted, IBM could be bullish long term. I mean, maybe it'll break this zone and keep going higher, but I mean, I would need it to come down significantly. Zone, it gapped here and then hasn't filled this gap, and usually price does. So same with right here too. I do think this is going to come down a little bit first. There's not really any clear levels that I can, somebody else can, but you can see there's one here on the weekly. Price came down, rejected, big candle, now rejected again, rejected, and then finally broke through. So might come down to like 138, and then that's probably where I would be buying. I wouldn't buy it now. It's too close to this zone. Look at it on the monthly. I mean, last month was very, very bullish. There is a good chance that it's going to push through, I guess. I would still, because I just don't see. I need an area of resistance. I need something. I need it to at least come down to here and reject, or 142 area, or here. I need it to reject somewhere first, theoretically. Now, we don't have to take this trade by any means, but we will mark it out to see. So IBM apparently moves. This is telling me about 12 bucks a month. Last month it moved 13. Before it was 11. Month before that it was 9.5. So yeah, I would say 10 bucks is definitely fair. So I would place my low here. Monthly low. and then about 142. So my low for the month for IBM will be 142 bucks. And then I'm looking to take a position to 152, which is $10 range for the month, and target the high. So a bunch has to happen first. On a monthly aspect we're looking at, which it usually moves about $10 in a month. So that's what we're going to shoot for, is our monthly move. And then we need price to come down here or somewhere and show me some support, because this candle's way too bearish here. I guess it did here as well and came out. So it's just a little bit iffy for me, but I would look at a buy position here at this zone, bank on the fact that it's going to break this zone here and go to one of the higher ones that we marked out before. So not only is it going to break this zone, but it's going to break this area as well. So you're banking on a lot here. You're basically going against the grain. You got two major resistance zones previously here, and you're attempting to push it to prices it hasn't been to in 5 years. So that's kind of not in our favor. So I don't know if I would actually take this trade by any means, but I would, I would break it down and I would consider it. Maybe there's definitely better companies, better things to trade, to be honest, but hey, we'll go with it. I mean, Forbes says this is, the number 6 company to invest in for AI. So maybe I don't know anything. Maybe they're right. So I would wait for price to come down to about 142 bucks, come down to this area, this last previous area that it resisted well. You can see that it gapped and then held here, held here, held here. So 142 is the only price that I'd actually be comfortable with. And then I would target the 152 area, just being that is the $10 range for the month. And I'm not going to take a trade where I don't have a good risk to reward. So I don't need 10. I mean, right now I have it marked up as 10, 10R. So, basically risk a buck to make 10, which, I do like that R ratio. It's definitely not against that. But we'd have to see what price does once it comes down to this area. I don't want to buy it before then. There's just too many major zones here that are conflicting. And price is history is just not in our favor. Anytime price is in these areas, it gets rejected. So it hasn't been higher than 152 since 2008. So just don't know. I don't know if I would take that. So, but we'll see. We'll let price come down to 142 and then decide there. That's kind of my trade breakdown for the month for IBM, the allegedly number 6th company to invest in regarding AI for 2023. So. Okay, now we got Micron Technology, another company I've never heard of, but I don't study a ton of techniques, to be honest. I just study technicals of whatever I see, whatever I decide to trade. I mostly trade other asset classes, to be honest, but we'll break this down. I'm always I like to learn too, and I like to trade anything that's profitable. So if this will make me money, and then so last week very, very bullish. This week was a pullback week. You can see price came down, got rejected, so that's a good sign that it wants to go up. There's some previous resistance on the weekly in this area here, so we'd have to break that, go higher, but I definitely think it could. Price did gap here dramatically, but now came back and kind of filled the gap, so I like that. So far this is looking pretty good. Price is above this moving average, so it's still bullish. See, it was below, but now it crossed over and it's held. So, Micron Technology, I see it, can see it staying bullish. Let's figure out what our monthly range is. So this tells me it's about 11 bucks. Last month it did 11. Before that did 7. Before that, I could go with 11. I think that would be pretty reasonable. So my monthly low will be a 67. Right, you want a whole number, and you want it to be just kind of right around the lowest area of wicks for the month. This was August 3rd. It's kind of close to 67 bucks. So, and then $11 is our range. So we're looking at about $77 being our target, or I guess $78. We'll do 11 instead of 10. $78 is our range. That'll be our monthly high. Sorry for my key. So yeah, 78 bucks. That's going to be our target. This little September marker, and then we got to figure out an entry though. So I do like the $67 area, to be honest, that there was substantial wicks here. I think you can see that as an area of supply, as an area of liquidity for buyers, this functioned really well. It kind of held here, came up, broke down, came in, and then just finally gapped through it. And now looks like it came back into this area and then pulled up a little bit, but it doesn't really want to go higher yet. So I think it'll come down a little bit. You can see the daily closed large wick here. So I think price will come back down to about 67 bucks. I want to see what it does in this zone, and then I would look for a buy. If we drop down time frames, by then the 4 hour will probably be pretty caught up, and it'll give us a good sign if it's going to reject or not, and if we're going to look for a buy position there. Same with the 1 hour. Price is still above the 1 hour, so obviously still bullish, which is good, but we want price to come down to this zone and reject this 1 hour moving average as well, and then start printing higher highs and higher lows. on the 1 hour time frame would be sufficient. And then I would look for a buy to, $78. I think, price would have to break this major area here. But I think it could. I think there's enough bull momentum here. You can see higher highs, higher lows on the weekly. You can see last week was very, very bullish. And then this week was just a pullback week into this zone. So I think it could definitely do it. I think with these lower or these higher lows here too. I mean the weekly price action is very good. If we look back at, if we look at these other time frames, I mean none of these are really adequate. The best look, but this is tough to see, but you can see it. So from here, price came up and then pulled back to this 618 level, and so it did complete a nice retracement, for the weekly section. So it gives me a lot of faith that it's going to continue up now. And this, this little bullish section, this bearish section here, all it was a retracement of this. So it's very healthy for price to do that. I mean, before price can keep going, before price could break this area, it had to determine, what was fair price. It made this huge move up, and then it has to come down a little bit. We have to see what fair price is. So fair price was considered at about $60 here, and since then, came right back up. You can see these areas of support here, all these wicks here. So the market decided $60 was fair price, and since then it's went straight up. So I like that a lot. I think this is from a technical standpoint, I think this is a good buy. I would just wait for it to come down a little bit to $67, and then target 78. Your stops, below the zone a little bit, and just adjust them as needed for, as price comes down into this zone. And then, take your long position to $78. If things get a little weird once they hit this zone, if it looks like it's losing momentum, then, you're free to take your profits there. But if everything looks good and smooth sailing, then I would just hold it right to 78. And then that's kind of your monthly outlook. That is your projection. I mean, it's ranging about $11 a month right now. So if this is your low, then that makes sense for this to be your high. So I think Micron Technology is a good buy relatively soon. I think long term it is bullish. I think as the number, I guess this is number 7 AI stock for the year of 2023 according to Forbes. I think I think it's a fair buy for sure. Okay, so now we have Microsoft. It's got some previous zones here that I drew. This trade was invalid. Never took it. Delete this. We'll delete this. Microsoft looks like it's pulling back a little bit. So let's break this down. I mean, everyone has heard of Microsoft. I hope so. It's at a major area of resistance. So I think if we look at all time, Microsoft has never been higher. But so that tells us a couple things. So if it breaks this zone, it could go very high. But if it doesn't break this area, well, we're kind of probably stagnant for a bit. So I'll delete this right now because it's a little bit ugly to have the daily. So, this is still bullish, very bullish, way above this 200-day moving average I have here. So looking at Microsoft, the normal range for a month is about, like last month it did $40, before it did 29, before that 32. This is telling me my average is about $34, $32. I would say 32 is very reasonable. I would still look for a buy on this, but not yet. I would have to wait because there's just too much bearish momentum coming out, especially after, it tried to close above 350, which it's never been. It's never closed above 350 before, and it's pulled back significantly since. You can see this weekly candle that just closed. It basically took out this area of support here and closed very bearish. So, this tells me that it still wants to go a little bit lower for sure, at the very least. It's going to probably break this area here. It's doing it now. But I do think Microsoft is still a good buy. They're obviously very, when it comes to technology, AI and everything, I think Microsoft is probably number one. They kind of have their hands in everything. I do think Microsoft will be a good buy. But for an immediate trade position, because we are trading, we're not so much investing. It depends on how you look at it. Investing is more long term. Investing is more just buying and praying, whereas I focus on trading. I only want to buy something if it's going to go up. If it's not going to go up, I don't want to own it. And then it's a time frame thing. So I don't want to hold it for 20 years. I want to hold it for a week and make money and then dump it if I need to. That's the difference with trading. So, and you can see price did gap here and it never really filled. So, there's a chance that it comes all the way back down. If it breaks this area right here, it very well could. So I don't know if it will yet, but can see price it did gap here, but it kind of filled. So that one I'm not as concerned about, but we'll figure out our monthly range here. So what we said is about $32. We'll go with 32. We'll say the monthly high is about 340, which I think it is. If we look at these wicks here, yeah, we'll say the monthly high is about 340, and then our low is going to be about 310, 308. That's your $30 move based on the monthly range. So I mean, this could just be a pullback month, which it does happen. Doesn't mean that Microsoft's not bullish. Doesn't mean it's not gonna eventually break this area and go higher, you know. But as of right now, I just don't know if there's enough momentum in the market and enough people willing to buy it above 350 to, you know, push it up, and which is why it's pulled back quite. So we'll see if it breaks this zone. If it does, I mean, my first immediate buy position would be 310, 308, because for a few reasons. So you can see these wicks here, which functioned as previous resistance before. When price was trying to go up, it wicked, and then here it kind of rejected a little bit until this weekly candle, and it completely blew through it. The next week came back down in this zone, got bought up through it. So this 310 area, I'm actually going to adjust this because that gives us, yeah, it's right at the bottom of this zone. So price likes whole numbers. 310 is more of a whole number than 308. So 310 is definitely my buy area. Not until then. I mean, this week closed way too bearish. It took out these bottoms. I do think price is going to break this zone. And then I'm looking for an entry at 310. So moving back to the daily, you got your monthly low here. This is hard to see now because I'm right at the same level as this. You're up a little bit. You can see your monthly low. There you go. So price is going to have to break this zone, which I think it will. And I think it's going to come down to 310. And then I think that's a pretty good buy. So even if you bought in this zone between 310, 315, you're probably better off. I think it's a good buy yet. I mean, you're welcome to buy it now and hold it and pray that it goes above 350, which I mean, some people do. But from a technical trading standpoint, I don't see a reason to buy it yet. I see too much bearish momentum after it touched 350. So I think just holding it, I think buying now and holding it is kind of silly when you could just wait for it to break this area. Just wait it out for the rest of the month, because this is kind of the range. This might just be a pullback month. It might go from 340 at the start of the month down to 310, and then, you know, come September we'll look for a buy position, you know, back up to 340, 350, possibly higher than that. So that's my take on Microsoft. The eighth highest, or I guess Forbes is rating it number 8 for, you know, best AI companies to invest in for 2003. So that's my take on Microsoft. I think it's a good buy, but we got to wait till about 315 at least. 315, 310. I don't want to buy it when it's overpriced right now. So that's that. Nvidia, okay. Very similar, I think, to Microsoft, because like you can see that there's this massive gap price. Nvidia is very, very, very over financially, and also, you know, on technicals here, you can see it's way above this moving average. So it's very bullish, but could be very overpriced, and there's a lot of space to make up here between this and the moving average. You can see price gapped here. It never filled this gap, so we don't even know what fair price of Nvidia is. So nobody seems to want to buy it after 480. And now it's down to 446, and I think it might keep dropping a little bit if it breaks this area for sure, just because we don't know what fair price is, right? So if no one wants to buy it up here, it's just going to come down until we decide what a fair price is. Maybe fair price is 400. I don't know. Could be this area here, right at 400-ish. We don't know yet. So, but I do think it's going to keep coming down. I mean, is it a good long-term investment? Probably. I mean, I don't think they're going anywhere. Is the stock itself overvalued? Yes. So are all of them. And price could still go above 480, but I just don't think it's going to yet, based on this, you know, rejection here, and then it's producing lower highs. So you had this high here, and then this high is lower lows, lower highs. So it's bearish price action for sure. I did draw this previously just to see if this area would be good, but based on this price action, no. I mean, too bearish of a candle going in, and then this bull candle here pulling out of this zone was not good enough. So I went over that maybe as an option, but no, it does not present itself as an option. I do think it's going to break this area. I would actually be interested in shorting this, which is would be a counter trend trade, but you can see that, you know, weekly aspect, this week closed and did engulf it a little bit. Yes, there's a bit of a wick here, but you know, versus these candles where there was huge bullish candle and then very little pullback candles, big bull, you know, since then hasn't made much progress. This might be a little top heavy now. We might be looking for a short position I'm not saying it's not a good buy, but I think it might go down. You can see on a monthly aspect, this thing has been crazy. So it just went on a huge run, no pullbacks, nothing like that. So I mean, it wouldn't be crazy for this to pull back up to at least 337, which would be the top here, which would be 382 level, which is very common for price to retrace to, or even deeper retrace to 292 at this 50% level. Totally reasonable. I think that's more likely right now. Let's see how bold. It's way above this monthly moving average, the weekly, and the daily. So I think there's some pullback in this for sure. I'm gonna look at our monthly range. This is telling me it's about 55 bucks. Last month it moved 67. Month before that was 66. Before that was 146. 55 to 60 bucks is definitely probable. I would look for a short position. And I would say my high for the month is about 470. And then my low, let's say it was 60 bucks. You're looking at about 410 for the monthly low, which is right here, which is very reasonable, which is where these other wicks are on the daily. This little area here, 410's right below that, so definitely could head there. And I think that's a better bet than buying it. I wouldn't necessarily short this because it is a counter trend trade, but you could. And I think you for the next month, for the month of August, I would say you're probably better off shorting this than buying it. If you had to do one, I would probably do that. So, but yeah, then I mean, if price comes down to 410-ish, I'd probably consider buy then, depending on the price action, what it looks like then. But I don't think I would buy it before then. There's other areas of liquidity here that you could buy at if price keeps going lower. It depends on your trading strategy. If you're trading or you're investing, if you're investing, maybe you just want to do, dollar average. So like, I'll buy some now, I'll buy some at 410, I'll buy some as it goes down. Because like the long-term play, it is bullish. And so I get that. You could do that as well. That's not my style, but I do understand that. I would just wait for price to come down to at least 410. 400, price likes whole numbers, so like 400 right here would be ideal, because you can see from a technical standpoint, 400 held this perfect. It functioned as resistance finally broke, and then held it as support. So, and I mean 400, like, it just sounds nice. Like, I bet you there's a lot of buyers at 400. So then there wasn't really any buyers at 500. There wasn't really buyers at 480. So, but I think there's buyers at 400. So I would just wait for price to come down to roughly that, and let the month play out. It's just a pullback month. It does happen. You've seen it with Microsoft. You've seen it with other companies we looked at. They just have pullback months. It's no big deal. And then yeah, we'll go from there. Once price hits 410, 400 on the month, I don't really see even a short setup. I mean, could short this off of these previous 4-hour wicks here, but I mean, that's also iffy. I wouldn't look for a short position. I don't see one that's significant enough to risk shorting it from. As far as like an area of entry, I mean, maybe if price came back up to the previous, I mean, okay, at 470 I would short it. At 470 I would short it, but I don't know if price is going to come back up that high. If it does, great. Then this is your position here for the month. But if it doesn't, I mean, I don't really have anything for you yet. Then, if price comes up to 470, short it. But then also, I mean, that's another thing you got to consider. If price comes up to 470 and there's a ton of bullish momentum, then it might push through these zones. So again, you don't want to short something if there's bullish momentum behind it. So that's where everything just kind of, when you're disciplined and you have principles and you have rules for entries and exits and everything, you start conflicting with yourself, and then there's no reason to take these trades, right? If you have conflicting judgments, you don't take a trade. So if there's bullish momentum going to these zones, I'm not going to short. That's silly. So I'm going to wait for price to come down to 410, 400. Make sure I see the bulls come back into the market. Make sure I see higher highs, higher lows on the shorter time frames, the 30-minute, the 1 hour, and then I'll look for a buy then, and that'll probably be next. That's my take on NVIDIA. Forbes is ranking it as number, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Forbes is ranking it as number 9 on, for the top companies to invest in for tech and AI for 2020. Okay, moving on, we got Oracle here. Very, very bullish, way above this moving average, has been since the end of October, so it's crazy, it's on a year. Very, very bullish. Did gap here back in, the start of June, and looks to be kind of filling that gap. But this has had a huge run. You can see hasn't pulled back at all. So very good chance this does pull back to about 94 bucks. Between 102 and 90 could definitely see happen. Appears like it's doing it already. You had this huge bull month in June, and then last month printed almost like a little doji candle. So you can see the indecision in the market. Now this month has started pulling back quite a bit so far. The First week of the month is all bears kind of thing. So I could see Oracle just coming down for a while here. Looking at this monthly, I don't know, is this at this might be at an all-time high. Again, anytime something's at an all-time high, you really have to expect that it's not going to keep going. And because there hasn't been a pullback since October, every single month is crazy. Eventually, the market has to decide, like, is this fair price? What is fair price of Oracle? Because we haven't seen for months, we haven't seen it go down. We haven't seen it get bought up at any bottom. So very fair. The price keeps moving down on Oracle for a bit. So let's figure out what it usually moves in a month. So last month was about $8. This thing's telling me it moves about 11. The month before, this big month was 2, 12. So I think $10 is definitely reasonable. So we'll figure that our high for the month is about 118. And that means our low will be, like, we figured that it moves roughly, yeah, we'll say 11 bucks. That'll be 107. This is your normal monthly range, which would fill this gap, which actually makes, you can see that, like, price has this area here, it's going to have to break. But once it breaks this area, it's probably going to go down to 107 because it's going to try to fill this gap most likely. So I'm looking for a short position on Oracle for now. I don't know if I would actually take a short position, but I'm saying trading wise, you'd be more inclined to take a short position than a buy. There's too much bearish momentum in the market. You can see price came down, higher lows. Now I think continuing to make that. I think once it breaks this area, it's just going. So I don't see any buys on this for probably this entire month. Just a pullback month. I wouldn't look to buy it until I've seen significant support in the market. This daily moving average catching up a bit. On the 4 hour, it's still above on the 4 hour. I want to see price touch this 4 hour moving average and get supported before I take any buys on Oracle. You can see if we go on the weekly, I mean, the only area that I would even consider without price even coming down to it, price would have to come down to this area before I even consider buying it. 102 and 107. This was the previous highs for this weekly segment back here, back in the end of November, like November 2021. So I would need price to come back and test this area again before I even considered buying it. I think it's and it makes sense because that's probably when this daily moving average would catch up. And so I would look for a buy position, but it would be way down here. And then I would just target, the monthly range or whatever. And maybe this is like a next month trade. Maybe it looks like this. That's probably what I would do. And then I would target, your monthly range for next month. So this might be September's trade. As far as if you're going to buy it, I'd probably wait till next month. I think it's going to keep. However, if you want to short this, if you are a counter trend trader or you're not looking to buy long term or anything, you just want to short this, some quick money if possible, then I think your 118 is your ideal zone. It's going to have to come back up to this area. If you wanted to force something a little bit more, so a little bit more high risk, but does actually look appealing, to be honest, your zone is right here. You can see that if you tighten these up a little bit, you can see price came down, rejected this, came back up, still rejected this wick, and then even this big one here came down, got pulled back again. But finally, these 2 weeks now shows that price is closing below 115, 1534 kind of thing. So based on this little area here, I would honestly say this is a good place to short from. You're going to, and then if you wanted to short it down to 107, this is your play here. I do think this is significant, this area. It showed a lot of history recently between all these daily candles staying above it and then finally breaking below, and then these last 2 days just closing below this area, printing these nice wicks through the area. So I think that is significant. I think your trade would look something like this. So enter at 115 maybe if you can get in there at 115, between 115 and 115.50. If you can get in on that, short that trade, set your stops a little bit above these previous wicks here. And then I think you're good to go all the way to 107. And then we would look for a buy position there. So once that happens, so like this is literally what it would break down to from a technical standpoint. You short this from 115 down to 107, and then we would consider a buy back up to next month kind of thing. So it would look something like this for Oracle from a technical standpoint. Forbes does think it's one of the best companies to invest in for 2023 regarding AI and technology, which probably is, and I agree with that. Oracle is a massive, like they're going anywhere, and I think they're just going to acquire more stuff. I think there's going to be a handful of tech companies that just acquire everything and just dominate the space. So, and I think Oracle is one of them. But from a technical standpoint, I don't see this going up for a while. So I would just short it down to 107 and then look for a buy around that price if price action tells you that it's a good idea. So that is Oracle. Okay, so next up in spot number 11 for Forbes' top tech AI companies to invest in for 2023, we have Palantir Technologies. So currently very bullish, way above this moving average, higher highs, higher lows. Like the structure, market isn't closed, it's sitting at $18.20. If we look at the weekly close, it did gap quite a bit, rejected in this area here, and pulled back a bit. So it's found its area of resistance, but I think it could break this. See that it's just a historic zone. That's all that's really happening. I do think it's still very bullish. I think a technical standpoint, we can break this down. Even last month, very, very bullish. It moved $5 on average. It usually moves $4 a month. Before it was $60. So definitely think it can move $4 again. So now we just got to look at kind of what we want to do for month, and then obviously the end of year projections. So do I think it can keep going up to for the rest of the year? Absolutely. There's a major zone here at roughly between 26.40 and 28.80, $29 kind of thing. Major zone. So that's kind of probably the annual projections, the end of the year projections, I would say, for Palantir. But as far as an entry, so you can see price hit the zone and now it's pulling back a little bit. My first immediate thought of an entry here, as far as a monthly range, like we said, it's about $4. So if we decided that this was the high for the month, which it very well could be, at about $20.25, then our low for the month, $16.25, based on a $4 monthly average move, which would put us actually directly in this zone. So based on that, I like that a lot, and I think that adds up really well. So I'd be looking for price to come back down into this zone, around the $16.25, $16. $16 would even be better. It'd be the bottom of this zone. It would be a whole number. I think $16 would be a great buy if given the right price action once price hits the zone, and then targeting obviously this most recent high, and then for the end of the year as an investment, long-term kind of play would be into this zone between 26.40 and 26.80 for sure, somewhere in this zone I could see it going. But on a monthly aspect, as far as right now, I would wait for price to come down into this zone. I wouldn't buy it before then. Just reason being is price came into this area and was rejected. You can see Thursday's candle came into the zone, rejected, pulled back, and the following day, Friday, bearish close, bearish engulfing. So there's definitely some selling pressure in this zone. So just let price come back down to $25 and $16 at this previous area of support, and then as long as you start seeing some rejection in this area and you see some wicks forming, you see some higher highs, higher lows start to form on smaller time frames, ideally the 4 hour, you see price come to the zone, come back up a little bit, come down even lower, and then, or even not as low I guess, and then seeing higher highs, then you're good to go for your entry. And you still have, let's see, all of September, October, November, December kind of thing. I think you're good to go. It moves on average $4 a month like we discussed. So from the $16 range, technically the $26 range is only 2.5 months away. So that would be totally within range for the year. I think that's a very, very possible, outcome. This is still very bullish. It's way above this moving average. It's telling me nothing else, like it's against that. So I think Palantir Technologies is a definite buy for 23. It's from a technical standpoint, it makes sense to enter, buy it at about $16.25 and hold it to $26-27 for sure. So finish off the year. So that's Palantir. That's number 11 on Forbes' list of tech companies heavily invested in AI for 23. And the last, Tesla at number 12 for Forbes' AI investees for 23. So Tesla is obviously bullish. Tesla is everyone's favorite company, and a very conflicting company as far as, is it a tech company? Is it a car manufacturing company? Is it a roof company? Is it a solar company? What kind of company is Tesla? And I think it's just kind of all the above, and is obviously a technology company. So I think as far as AI goes and further tech investments, I think it's a definite buy, and I do think there's there's a cult following behind Tesla, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think a lot of people believe in it and support it and buy it. So I do think Tesla is going to be a good buy just based on that. But we'll break down some technicals here and we'll see what we're looking at. So this 290 zone just kind of came out of nowhere, and you can see as soon as price hit it, big weak bearish engulfing candle out of it. So definitely not looking to buy it yet on that. And then even this previous week's candle, bearish engulfing. So don't want to buy that yet. This zone is what I'm considering. Tesla really, I mean, all stocks really do like whole numbers, but I mean Tesla for sure, especially because it's so popular and such high volume. This 250 area is where I'd be looking at for a buy. Price did gap here and it never really filled it, so it makes sense that it wants to come back down to, might break this zone, but again, it's still very bullish. It's way above this much, so I would wait for Tesla to come into this zone, look for a buy entry. We'll look for a the normal range. So last month it moved $45. This is telling me on average it moved $65 a month, but last month was 45, the month 7 before that was 45. So I think 50 is definitely reasonable. So based on this, if 265, 266 was kind of the high for the month, we'll just mark these out for now. I think they're that accurate, but this too much. We'll put 268 here, and then we'll say price moves about 50 a month. That puts us at 280 to the bottom. Do I think it'll go this low? No. Could it? If we're being completely honest, if you look at the weekly for Tesla, a huge bull run, and so therefore, I mean, it might actually pull back then that I look at it. Back into this zone, this 218 zone, I actually could see this happening. You got your 226 is your 50% retracement, which is also this area here. So, I mean, that's very likely, guys, to be honest. And see that above here, closer to the 618 zone where price is very commonly going to, is also an area of resist support. So right here it was support, there's resistance here, now it broke above. So it could very well come down to this. So as far as this goes, I would not buy Tesla yet. I'm very bullish, but I would not buy it yet. So I would wait to see what it does in this zone here. But as far as the monthly range goes, Tesla is definitely, this could be a pullback month, the month of August, be a pullback month, and it could definitely go down to 218, 215, anything close to 210, which is this zone, this support zone here, which lined up with the 50% and the 618 retracement. It would make a lot of sense for price to come into, and then by that time this will catch up a little bit and act as support, kind of ready for the buy. All the big companies, Tesla, Apple, Microsoft, I think they're all kind of due for a big pullback. So this would make a lot of sense, and so I would wait for it to come down to at least this zone and see what it does. If there's not a ton of bullish momentum once price hits this zone, then I would just wait to come down to 218 is the range. That's $50 on the month. But it has been known to do more, so it might do 60, which would put us at like 208, which would be kind of right in this bottom of this zone. So definitely reasonable for Tesla to keep coming down. If it breaks this zone, I would bet that it does. Just to about between 218 and 210 would be your buy entry for Tesla. I would target obviously the previous highs at around 300, and then to continue the year, possibly higher to these ones, a little bit higher, possibly 310, between 305 and 315 for the end of the year, because we discussed that Tesla moves about $65 a month. If your buy entry was, let's say like 210, let's say price does come down to 210, and your end of the year target is 300 or 310. $100 move between 210 and 310 is only 2 months, right, ish. So it's very well possible that the end of this month price comes down to 210, and then for the rest of the year, price makes way back up to 310. You can see it doing that into November, December kind of thing. So like this is a good probability for Tesla, but I don't think it's a good buy yet. I think I would just wait. I want to get it on sale a little bit better. 218, 210 is kind of your price. So that is my take on Tesla. That is Forbes number 12, best stock to invest in for AI and tech for the year of 23. Hopefully that gave you some perspective.